Best Picture, and it brought the Oscars to an awkward halt. Moonlight ended up taking home the big prize.
Hollywood's biggest night also had its share of political moments. Celebrities taking on President Trump with a message of inclusion as the president heads to Capitol Hill tomorrow to make his first address to a joint session of Congress. We have it all covered. Let's start with CNN's
The show on top of it, Chris, a big moment there, the biggest award of the night, and then you have this major snafu, and you can see that everyone was in shock, the audience on their feet. And if you missed it, take a look.
Come on. La La Land.
The Academy Awards are billed as Hollywood's biggest night, but this year's ceremony ended with what could be one of the biggest screw-ups in its history.
I'm sorry. No, there's a mistake. There's a mistake. Moonlight, you guys won Best Picture.
Come on, this is not a joke.
This is not a joke. I'm afraid they read the wrong thing.
This is not a joke. Moonlight has won Best Picture. Moonlight, Best Picture.
It was a La La Land producer who announced the gap.
I'm a little bit in a daze. They just kind of handed us an envelope and the awards, and we just kind of started accepting, and everybody came up. And then there were some people with headsets that started kind of coming out on the stage, and it was suddenly clear that something wasn't right.
Very clearly, even in my dreams, this could not be true. But to hell with dreams. I'm done with it, because this is true. It is true. It's not fake. We've been on the road with these guys for so long, and that was so gracious and so generous of them. My love to La La Land, my love to everybody.
The reactions backstage were equally confusing.
Is that the craziest Oscar moment of all time? Cool. Guys, we made history tonight.
I noticed the commotion that was happening, and I thought something strange had occurred. And then I'm sure everybody saw my face, but I was speechless.
After the mistake with the biggest prize was corrected, Moonlight ended the night with 3 wins: Best Picture, Adapted Screenplay, and Actor in a Supporting Role for Mahershala Ali, who becomes the first Muslim actor to win an Academy Award.
It's not about you. It's about these characters. You're a servant. You're in service to these stories and these characters, and I'm so blessed to have had an opportunity.
A new record was set for the most black Oscar winners in a single year, with 5 taking home awards in 4 different categories.
It's important that we take a second to appreciate what is happening here. We're at the Oscars, the Academy Awards. You're nominated. You got to come. Your families are nominated. Your friends. Some of you will get to come up here on this stage tonight and give a speech that the President of the United States will tweet about in all caps during his 5 a.m. bowel movement tomorrow.
While Oscars host Jimmy Kimmel took jabs at President Trump throughout the telecast, it was the best foreign language film win by Iranian director Asghar Farhadi, where politics took center stage. Farhadi boycotting the award show in protest of President Trump's travel ban on 7 majority Muslim countries. Iranian-American astronaut Anousheh Ansari accepted on his behalf.
Dividing the world into the us and our enemies categories creates fear, a deceitful justification for aggression and war. These wars prevent democracy and human rights in countries which have themselves been victims of aggression.
All right, now back to that big card snafu. Emma Stone did hold on to her card. That's true. That's because there are 2 cards and there are 2 accountants. And that's so that they can make sure that one card says the right name of who won, and then the other person can confirm that when it's said on stage. But one card was not discarded and somehow ended up in Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway's hands. The PricewaterhouseCoopers coming out with a statement saying the presenters had mistakenly been given the wrong category envelope. And just to put this into perspective of what this means, Chris and Allison, when you take a look at a movie like Moonlight that was made in 25 days, shot over 25 days, and made for about $1.5 million, this would have been a huge upset on its own, that Moonlight won over La La Land, but that is all being overshadowed by the snafu. But I have to tell you, after talking to both camps, there at the Governor's Ball, talking to Barry Jenkins, talking to Jordan Horowitz, there is a lot of love between these 2 films and the people that made these films, and you can see that in the way they spoke about each other. So a lot of class in how both sides handled this.
That's nice, Stephanie. Thank you very much for all of that. You know, so many people say this is reminiscent of what happened with the epic mistake that Steve Harvey made when he was hosting the Miss Universe pageant. And Steve Harvey has just tweeted a few moments ago. He says, "Good morning, everybody. Went to sleep early last night. So what did I miss?"
The Miss Universe contest had also tweeted to the Oscars people, "Call us. Have your people call our people. We know how to handle this." But big difference. That was on Steve Harvey. He screwed up. This was supposedly not on Beatty and who was it? Woodward that he was with.
No,
right? Faye Dunaway. Dunaway. It wasn't on them. It was on the accountants. Although, did you see how that producer? This is sensitive to us as talent. Do you see how the producer snatched that card out of Beatty's hands? It was almost like, you people can't do anything right. Here's who won.
I know, that was great. I mean, he recognized where the camera was. Let me show you who won Moonlight at the end.
And it was good how he took control of it, and he made sure he cut it off as soon as possible. Turned into a net positive.
That was classy.
All right, so the Trump administration is expected to reveal its budget proposal in just a few hours ahead of the president's big primetime address to a joint session of Congress. That's tomorrow night. The plan is expected to ramp up military spending in a big way, make some cuts to federal agencies, but also have a huge tax cut. So what are they going to do about the deficit? Will the politics poison his own plan 38 days in? CNN senior Washington correspondent Joe Johns live at the White House with more. This could be the first political showdown between Trump and the Tea Party, the deficit hawks.
That's very right, as a matter of fact, Chris. And you know, among the things that we know is going on, they're expecting to give us a better idea of the budget blueprint, the very first budget blueprint for this administration. As you said, we are expecting them to ramp up spending for the Pentagon, cut back on spending for many of the other agencies, and they say they're going to leave the entitlements, Social Security, and Medicare alone.
President Trump expected to call for a substantial increase in military spending and massive cuts to several federal agencies in the first draft of his administration's budget proposal. The plan targeting agencies including the Environmental Protection Agency, while aiming to protect Social Security and Medicare. Last night, ahead of a meeting with the National Governors Association this morning,
I think you're going to see something very, very special.
Trump repeating criticisms and vowing to scrap Obamacare, despite a lack of Republican unity around any plan.
It doesn't work, but we're going to have it fixed, and we're going to repeal and replace.
Ahead of his first address to a joint session of Congress Tuesday night, Trump trying to project an image of success.
It's been a lot of fun, but we've accomplished almost everything we've started out to accomplish.
This amid growing calls for an independent investigation into alleged communications between Trump campaign aides and Russians known to U.S. intelligence. Leaders on both sides of the aisle suggesting a Justice Department led by Attorney General Jeff Sessions can't be impartial.
You cannot have somebody, a friend of mine, Jeff Sessions, who was on the campaign and who was an appointee. You're going to need to use the special prosecutor's statute.
The Attorney General must recuse himself.
The American people need to understand whether the Russians, in cahoots with the Trump folks and others, rigged the election.
President Trump attempting to quash the headlines, tweeting Russia talk is fake news put out by the Dems and played up in the media in order to mask the big election defeat and the illegal leaks. The White House taking unprecedented measures to clamp down on leaks. Press Secretary Sean Spicer checking the work and personal phones of aides last week to make sure they weren't using encrypted texting apps or corresponding privately with reporters, specifically asking his staff not to leak information about the meeting or the crackdown effort.
Today, the president is expected to meet again with members of the National Governors Association, and we're also expected to see top Republican leaders from Capitol Hill here at the White House talking to the president in advance of his big speech to Congress tomorrow. Back to you.
Okay, Joe, thanks so much for all of that. Joining us now is Robert Wassinger. He is the former Director of Senate Affairs for the Trump campaign and a former senior official for President Trump's transition. Rob, thanks so much for being here. Welcome to the program.
Sure, I'm happy to be here.
All right, let's talk about what Joe Johns was just laying out there in the piece. The questions that persist about the contacts that were made from people on the Trump team with Russia. You were part of the transition. What do you know about the relationship between Team Trump and Russia?
Well, I think right now everybody needs to kind of take a step back. All we really know, the only thing that's come out, is that the national intelligence community illegally wiretapped a private citizen having a conversation. That's the only thing we know. The rest of it is very imprecise allegations, rumors, and innuendo. And in fact, half the time I don't even know what the real allegation is about these contacts.
Well, I mean, I'll spell it out for you. The allegation is that there were repeated contacts between high-level Trump aides and Russia, and that this was before Mr. Trump was in the White House, which, of course, as we know, there's only one president at a time, and so that would run afoul of rules and tradition that you don't start negotiating with Russia beforehand, as well as, because of Mr. Trump's conciliatory tone, perhaps the relationship was cozy.
I think, again, like I said, what we have is the national intelligence community with illegal tapping, letting out that information to the Washington Post in an effort to take out former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. And I think if you take a step back at some of the other elections where allegations like this have been made, particularly in '96 with Clinton, Gore, and the Chinese fundraising, we had actual evidence of the Chinese trying to influence the election through financial contributions. The vice president was making fundraising calls out of his official office. Those are real illegal activities. What we're talking about here again is just very amorphous, imprecise allegations, and again, the only real fact that we have is that the national intelligence community illegally tapped Michael Flynn, a private citizen, having conversations.
So you don't think that what the 17 intel agencies have said about Russia hacking the DNC, you don't think that that's real evidence?
I don't think we have all the facts in that regard. All I'm saying is what's been reported so far, and what we do know doesn't lead to an investigation that even needs to occur. I think a lot of this is just confusion that the media is trying to put up to distract the president from implementing his agenda.
But again, how is it the media's fault, or that the media is concocting the fact that the intel agencies said that there was hacking from the Russians?
We don't know. We don't know what has been said and what hasn't been said between the intelligence communities. All we know is what I've already talked about. And at this point, I don't think there's enough information for an investigation to even go forward.
The intel agencies do listen in on phone calls of Russian officials. So why do you believe that what they did was illegal when they captured the phone call with Michael Flynn?
Well, Michael Flynn's a private citizen, and he has his own rights. I don't think the national intelligence community should be wiretapping private citizens in the United States and then releasing that information to the media. I think that's a very dangerous place to go, and I think it's something that probably most Americans would agree with. I think Democrats, liberals, Republicans, conservatives, everybody can agree that our national security community should not be wiretapping private citizens and then releasing that information to the media.
Yeah, look, as we understand it, they were listening in on the Russian diplomat, as they do, and they just capture whoever he talks to.
You know, what they did in terms of their surveillance, look,
halls that where people, you've seen the groundswell against Republicans, and I mean, we've heard it from David Drucker here that they think that he's somehow appeasing some some constituents.
A little cynical, though, when he just won his race. I mean, maybe you let the man have his conscience. Also, Mike Flynn was not wiretapped, okay? The Russian was wiretapped. He got picked up on a call. That's deceptive and incorrect. And the idea that we don't know what the intelligence community thinks about Russian hacking, Clapper came out. They came out not once, but twice. They were clear about there being no dispute about the ownership of the hack responsibility. It was Russia. Just for the facts.
Investigations continue.
Yeah, they do, but that we know. All right, so he was one of Hillary Clinton's biggest supporters. So why was President Trump singing his praises last night? Virginia's Democratic Governor Terry McAuliffe is on.